So in this segment, we're going to be talking about how the UK pretends to care about human rights in other countries, but really doesn't care that much. And so the UK has imposed sanctions on 49 people and organisations behind the most notorious human rights abuses of recent years. So individuals implicated in the death of Russian lawyer Sergei Magnitsky in 2009 will have their UK assets frozen and banned from entering the country. And Saudi Arabian officials involved in the 2018 murder of Jamal Khashoggi have also been targeted. Foreign Secretary Raab has said this has sent a clear message. What the message has been sent is that if you're in charge of this, you will not be punished. But if you're the minions, you may be punished. Because according to the CIA, they figure that it was Prince Salman, Bonesal Salmon, who was in charge, who gave the order to have Khashoggi kidnapped or killed. And so what that means is, without him being punished, who cares? If you're not going to punish the Chinese of what they've done to the Uyghur Muslims, who cares? Really? Because all you've done is, in this case, you're punishing some Russian state actors who committed atrocities, which is fine. But do not pretend that you're doing this for altruistic reasons when you're not. You're doing this to pretend you're looking like you're doing something. So Russia has threatened to retaliate with reciprocal measures and said the sanctions were pointless. Russia reserves the right to respond to today's unfair decision by the UK. This is on the 4th of July, 6th of July even. And so what we can tell from this article is a joke. 25 Russian nationals involved in the mistreatment and death of lawyer Sergei Magnitsky, who uncovered widespread corruption by a group of Russian tax and police officials. And so that's, I think the US and the UK have the Magnitsky Act in order to clamp down on, Russians who do these sorts of things, who commit atrocities. I think not many people have been punished, and there's a lot of Russian money within the House of Lords and the House of Commons, and also within the stock markets as well. So not much will come of this. Two high-ranking, so let's have a look. There's 20 Saudi Arabian nationals involved in the death of murder of Jamal Khashoggi in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Two high-ranking Myanmar military generals involved in the systemic and brutal violence against Rohingya people and other ethnic minorities. Two organizations involved in forced labor, torture, and murder in North Korea's gulags. So what they're doing is they're not punishing the leaders who have allowed these things to happen. So in this case, Vladimir Putin, Bonesal Salmon, the lady who won I can't remember her name, the one who won the Nobel Prize, and obviously Kim Jong-un. What they're doing is punishing the minions who've been involved in this. Mr. Raab said those who targeted and had been involved in extrajudicial killings, including political assassinations, torture, degrading treatment, forced labour, and servitude. So you're going to punish George Bush, right, for allowing torture to happen in Guantanamo Bay, and Barack Obama? Nah. And Trump? Didn't think so, bud. Those on the list will include former minister in the Russian Interior Department and the former deputy head of the Saudi intelligence services will be stopped from entering the UK. Well done. You're going to stop them coming to the country. They ain't going to come here. Channeling money into the country or profiting from the British economy through property or other assets they own today, the British government has sent a very clear message that we will not punish leaders and higher-ups who do these things. We will punish you, the minion, who have committed these acts. You should be punished, but your leader should be punished as well. That's all I'm saying. So if we look here, some analysis from James Lansdale. The UK's new sanctions regime is significant. It marks the first time Britain has had its own independent scheme focused entirely on tackling human rights abuses. Until now, it's almost had to act in concert with the EU. The government wants the UK to be seen as a leading defender of international rules and human rights. So that's why we, under May, attacked Syria without... which was illegal, and we've committed other illegal acts such as the war in Iraq and other places. But we want to be looked at as the human rights beacon, the hope of the universe. One key test would be whether it gets support from other countries. So the United States kind of had similar schemes. The EU is working on its own version. Sanctions are way more powerful when imposed collectively, which is true because we've seen that when sanctions aren't imposed collectively, look at the League of Nations when they acted towards Italy, where Italy was still able to get stuff from the USA. It wasn't very effective. What was announced today was the first wave of UK sanctions. More are expected to come, and MPs are keen to see some Chinese names on the list. So, that's fine, but unless you punish the leaders, this is pointless. And it's not looking clear that they're going to do that. And so this is crap analysis from James Lansdale, because he should point out the fact that unless you're going to punish the leaders, there's no point to. We can't turn an eye to gross violations of human rights. And you want to see the kicker in this. You want to see the pièce de résistance, or I can't do French. The pièce de resistance, French people cringe everywhere. The UK to resume Saudi arms sales after humanitarian review. The UK to resume arms sales to Saudi Arabia despite concerns they could be used against civilians in Yemen in violation of international humanitarian law. Sales were suspended last year after a legal challenge by campaigners. The subsequent review found isolated instances of possible violations, but no pattern of compliance and no clear risk of the future. So what we can see from this is just symbolic, and that the government don't really care. They don't care, because if they did care, they'll stop selling weapons to despots like Bonesaw Salmon, but they don't. And so what we can tell from this is purely symbolic. And there's nothing more for me to say apart from the blockade and the genocide in Yemen will continue, and the UK will keep arming it. The US, Canada, other countries, they'll keep doing it because there's money to be made, and where there's money to be made, there's people to be paid, and politicians are cheap. And so I'm going to leave it there. Look at that. More than 60% of the civilian deaths, 60% of civilian deaths have been through the result of Saudi airstrikes. So it looks like they're just targeting civilians on purpose, because they could do targeted airstrikes, and they could do airstrikes where they actually figure out the lay of the land before they do them, but they don't. And they've had examples where they've attacked first responders, and they've also bombed funerals. So the Saudis are absolute scumbags, and the UK continues to do the symbolic gesture and continues to arm these people. And the fact that this guy, I guess you could say it was the day after, but it's purely symbolic. And I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.